Hello and welcome to the Holistically Psyched podcast. I'm your host, Mariah, Choate, a nationally certified school psychologist turned stay-at-home mom who now has the freedom to share what school districts don't want you to know after spending over a decade in the field of education. My goal is to help you learn all you need to know about special education that districts often gatekeep. Each episode will dive into how commonly laws are blatantly broken and tips on leveraging special education law to support best practice for students and teachers alike. We'll also feature interviews with parents and educators who are navigating these challenges head-on, along with those who are making strides to improve this broken system. This channel is for you, parents of students with suspected or diagnosed disabilities who already have or might need individualized education plans or 504 plans. It's also for teachers, counselors, and fellow school psychologists who are feeling the strain of a system that often leaves us feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. So if you're ready to learn, advocate, and empower yourself, child, or students, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to the Holistically Psyched podcast, where we peel back the layers of special education, shedding light on the realities, the challenges, and the important things every parent should know about their child's individualized education program. I'm your host, Mariah Choate, and in this episode, we're diving into a topic every parent should feel confident navigating: questions to ask during an IEP meeting. Whether you're preparing for your child's initial IEP eligibility meeting or a triennial assessment review, knowing what to ask can make all the difference. Let's start by talking about something that's all too common in special education: gatekeeping. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, gatekeeping is when someone intentionally restricts or withholds information that you, as a parent or caregiver, have the right to know. In the context of special education, I've seen cases where districts intentionally withhold important details or make it harder for parents to access their child's educational records, IEP information, or even assessments. Sometimes this happens out of a lack of awareness or confusion, but sometimes it's just more deliberate, as I just witnessed in an IEP meeting this past week when the team intentionally used jargon and terms that they know the parent wouldn't commonly know. They refuse to explain, they rush them into decision making, and it's just downhill from there. Even though the law requires schools to be transparent and clear, this kind of gatekeeping can happen when districts are more concerned about minimizing their workload, avoiding uncomfortable conversations about where their students are truly at in terms of progress, or even recommending services they might need. So, how do you, as a parent, break through that gatekeeping? The first step is knowing exactly which questions to ask. So, let's start with your child's very first IEP meeting, the eligibility meeting. This is when the IEP team determines if your child qualifies for special education services under one or more of the 13 federal disability categories outlined by IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So here are some questions you'll want to ask during this crucial first meeting. Number one, what eligibility category are you recommending and why? This question helps you understand how the school sees your child's needs. For example, are they recommending specific learning disability, autism, or maybe speech and language impairment? Make sure that they explain their reasoning and data clearly. Number two, what data or assessments were used to determine eligibility? Ask for specific assessment results and how those results support the eligibility determination. If the results just don't make sense or you have concerns, it's okay to ask for clarification or even request independent evaluations. Number three, what are my child's specific strengths and needs as outlined in the evaluation? This ensures that the discussion remains balanced and strengths based. You want to know how the team plans to build on your child's strengths while addressing their challenges. Number four, if my child is found eligible, what services or supports will be provided? Ask for details about what those services are, what the accommodations are, what the modifications are, how those will look in the school setting. Is my child going to be pulled out 3 times a week for speech and language services? Is it going to be a group setting? Is it going to be one-on-one sessions? Will they be in a separate classroom? Who is going to be monitoring that? And how those services will specifically support your child's unique needs. Number five, what happens if my child is not found eligible? So it's essential to know your next steps if your child is not found eligible for an IEP. This could include exploring even a 504 plan or requesting additional assessments. Remember that it's okay to ask for time to review the evaluation report before the meeting or to take notes and to come back later with questions. These meetings can feel so overwhelming, so give yourself permission to process the information at your own pace. Now let's shift to the triennial assessment meeting. So this happens every 3 years to reevaluate your child's eligibility for special education and their progress. This meeting is just as critical because it's an opportunity to ensure that the services in place are actually working. Here are the key questions to bring to any triennial review. Number one, does my child still qualify under their current eligibility category? And if not, what other categories were looked at? So eligibility can change over time. Maybe your child's needs have shifted, or another category might be more appropriate. Maybe they no longer meet the criteria for special education. Ask for detailed explanations of their findings. Number two, are all the services and accommodations in the current IEP being implemented? And again, ask for examples of how that's happening. Confirm that everything that's promised in the IEP is actually being delivered. Ask who is providing those services. If it's that a child is getting a specific type of pencil to use, or maybe a specific type of computer, who is giving them that? Do they know how to ask for it? How often are they getting it? If there are gaps, ask why and ask what the team is going to do to address those issues. Number three, what new recommendations, if any, does the team have based on this assessment? So as your child grows, their needs might change. It's important to understand what services or supports might need to be added, removed, or adjusted. Number four, how does the team measure my child's learning and growth? This is all about transparency. You should leave the meeting with a very clear picture of exactly how progress is tracked with your child. Whether it's through standardized tests, work samples, or observational data, you need to know who is tracking what and how often. Number five, how can I support my child's learning at home? This is my favorite one because collaboration is key. The school team may have insights or strategies that you can use to reinforce skills at home so that your child is getting the same type of support in all different areas of their life. Number five, is my child making meaningful progress? You'll want to know if your child is actually improving. And if they're not, ask for a change. Make sure that whatever concerns are presented in the meeting, the team provides goals or services to address those specific concerns or weaknesses. Schools are legally obligated to ensure meaningful progress for children with IEPs. So let's dive into that a little bit more. Let's talk about the law. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, is the cornerstone federal law that governs all of special education in the United States. IDEA guarantees that students with disabilities receive a free, appropriate public education, or FAPE, in the least restrictive environment, or LRE. This includes a legally binding individualized education program, or IEP, that outlines how the district will meet your child's needs. But what does this meaningful progress actually look like in the context of an IEP? In Andrew F. versus Douglas County School District in 2017, the U.S. Supreme Court made it very clear that the IEP must be designed to enable the child to make progress appropriate in light of the child's circumstances. This was a landmark decision, and it raised the bar for what qualifies as an appropriate IEP. The court specifically rejected the idea that a child with disabilities would receive merely de minimis, or minimal progress, meaning that schools cannot simply offer the lowest level of progress and call it a day. Instead, schools must provide an IEP that is reasonably calculated to enable the child to make progress that is meaningful, not just trivial. This ruling emphasizes that schools can't just do the minimum required by law, but they actually must focus on providing an education that truly addresses the child's unique needs and challenges. In Rowley versus Hendrick Hudson School District in 1982, the Supreme Court further clarified that a meaningful IEP must provide more than just access to education. It must provide an education that allows the child to make academic progress that's tailored to their specific needs. This is where the concept of appropriate progress comes in. So schools are not required to give the child the best possible education, but they must provide an education that offers more than just minimal benefits. These meetings aren't just about eligibility or progress. They're also about ensuring your child continues to grow and thrive in their setting. You, as the parent, are such a vital member of that IEP team, and your questions can help guide this process. Whether it's your first IEP meeting or your fifth, remember that asking questions is your right and your responsibility. Your child's success depends on a collaborative effort between you, the school, and the rest of the IEP team. If you need further support with this, I created a resource just for you that focuses on exactly which questions to ask at an initial, annual, or triennial IEP. I also included questions regarding behavior or services and things like that. You can find this free download at the link below. However, if you're looking for a more comprehensive step-by-step guide that provides support from understanding the initial IEP process through even more detailed case law specifics like I mentioned earlier, you can grab my IEP guide for parents and teachers at the link below as well. If you found this episode helpful, share it with another parent who might benefit from this information. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Until next time, just remember that advocacy starts with asking the right questions.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I would be so grateful if you could share this with anyone you can think of who works in education or happens to have a child with disabilities. If this was helpful for you, make sure to subscribe so you can hear some of the crazy and amazing stories of what is really going on behind the scenes in public education. Until next time, remember, in the famous words of Maya Angelou, each child belongs to all of us, and they bring us a tomorrow in direct relation to the responsibility we have shown to them.